Hello again, fellow film fans. I realized that I made a mistake on one of my videos. Fantastic Planet is not the only animated 1970s dystopian science fiction movie. I had forgotten this one, which is actually more fantasy than science fiction, but it still counts, and that's 1977's Wizards, which was written, directed, and produced by animator Ralph Bakshi. Um, I just rewatched it right now, so it's very fresh in my mind, and it's one of my favorites. I've always enjoyed it. Prior to 1981's Heavy Metal, this was my favorite animated movie. It's funny, it's silly, it's a lot of fun. There's some great jokes, great humor in it, and terrific animation by a number of very excellent animators. It stars the voices of, I should start with the story. Narrated by Susan Tyrell, and yes, Susan Tyrell, who played the Queen in Forbidden Zone, and a lot of other good roles. Um, has a voice that was once described as whiskey, though it sounds more like honey in this version. Very seductive voice. Um, and she does a great narration job. Unfortunately, she's uncredited. I think that had something to do with the Actors Union. They wouldn't allow her a credit for doing the movie. I don't know why, but she got a lot of work after this because of this narration. But a good movie, a very good animation. It uses rotoscope, but not extensively. And the reason that Bakshi used rotoscope in a lot of the scenes is Fox wouldn't let him completely animate the battle scenes the way he wanted to. They wouldn't give him the extra money. So he just rotoscoped over films like Zulu and El Cid and some World War II footage and incorporated that into the battle scenes, and that it worked. So it was, effective for the movie, and it saved him money because, cell animation is very, very, very expensive and time consuming. So again, they probably saved him time and money in making the production. The voices are Eleanor is played by Jesse Wells. Avatar is played by Bob Holt, who was hired because he could do a voice imitation of Peter Falk. And if you listen to Avatar, he sounds like Columbo a little bit, which is kind of funny. Weehawk is played by Richard Romanus, who was also in Heavy Metal. Peace is played by David Proval, Blackhawk by Stephen Gravers. Like I said, Susan Tyrell was the narrator. The president was Jim Connell, and Sean, the head of the fairies, was played by Mark Hamill, who took time off of making Star Wars to make this movie. And one of my favorite characters, he's listed only as Frog, but his actual name is Larry, and he's played by a guy named Angelo Grisanti. And he says a lot of really funny lines like, Master loves Larry, Master feeds Larry. I love that character. He's just crazy. Like this alligator lizard kind of guy. He's very funny. One of Avatar's cronies, Blackwell's cronies, I should say. The story is about, there's a nuclear war, and as Susan Tyrell says, the world blew up in 1,000 atomic fireballs. And 2 million years later, sunlight finally the sky clears up enough for sunlight to start filtering in. All the humans who have survived have become hideous mutants, and each new human birth is a tragedy, as she says. But the older peoples of the earth, the fairies and the elves and the trolls, and those people have come back. And one night, the Queen of the Fairies, Delia, sees a strange sign in the heavens, and she goes back to her house and bears two children. One of them is a good wizard named Avatar, and one of them is an evil wizard, mutant named Black Wolf. And they grow up to be completely different. Avatar is good, and he performs tricks for his mother, and Black Wolf spends his time torturing little animals. Like he turns a deer into a dragon in one of the scenes. And the static scenes where they do the static animation is done by the great Mike Ploog, who also worked on the B-17 segment of Heavy Metal. Although in some ways he was kind of channeling Wally Wood. If you don't know who Wally Wood is, you should. Weird fantasy, weird science, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror. He worked on all of those. He also created the modern look for Daredevil. He was the first one to give Daredevil a red suit with the yellow D's on his forehead. That was Wally Wood's work. And Mike Ploog took a lot of his kind of style from him, though he has his own style as well. Other background animators included Ian Miller, a great Czech animator called Ira Turek, Martin Struder, and David Jonas, all of whom are really just excellent animators. Some of the other animators include Brenda Banks, Irvin Spence, Martin B. Taylor, Martin B. Tarvis, Robert Taylor, and Arthur Vitello. I was aware of Arthur Vitello's work as well, and some other terrific animators on this project. So anyway, Avatar and Black Wolf had to have a great fight after Delia dies, and Avatar's upset, and Black Wolf is overjoyed, and he becomes angry, and they have a sorceress battle, and because he's spurred on by this loss of his mother, Avatar wins, and he banishes Black Wolf from Montagar, the head of the good peoples, and he's banished to a radiation-filled land called Scorch, and he vows to come back someday with a mutant army and take over the Earth. Well, it's explained by the narrator that he tries several times, but his mutants are easily distracted, and they give up in the middle of battle. They don't have any real leadership. Despite the fact that he's summoned generals from hell, he can't keep them organized enough to win a battle, and the fairies win all the time. But Avatar's been scouring the land for ancient forbidden technology. This movie is mostly about the difference between technology and magic. There's a fight between technology and magic. And the believers in magic eschew technology and think it's evil. Avatar wants technology, and he finds various tanks and planes and cannons and guns and machine guns, and he sends an assassin to kill the president of Montagar. The assassin's name is Necron 99, and he's loosely based on the Vaughn Baudet character Cobalt 99, and that's not coincidental. It's a tribute to Baudet, as Avatar is somewhat of a tribute to Vaughn Baudet's character Cheech Wizard. And also the character of Eleanor is somewhat based on Rudy Patoot, who's a character in a lot of the Cheech Wizard comics as well. That's not, like I said, it's not a ripoff. It's a tribute by Bakshi, who actually collaborated with Baudet on some of these ideas. The animation is original. It's not. I don't consider it to be a ripoff. Some people do. I disagree. There's also references to some of his comics, like Junk Waffle, and some of the soldier characters look like characters out of Junk Waffle, if you've read that comic. Avatar finds his ultimate find, which is a projector which has old Nazi war propaganda on it. And when his troops are attacking the fairies and the elves, he plays this projector, and the images frighten them so much because they've never seen a real war. They've never participated. There hasn't been a war in 3,000 years, or 2 million years, really, but a significant one in I think they said 3,000 years. So they're terrified, and they drop their weapons, and they become helpless. And then Avatar's forces start to win. Black Wolf's forces rather start to win, and he's sweeping across the lands. His ultimate goal is to take over Montagar. Take over the whole world. And Black Wolf is summoned to stop him, and he's saying things like, "I'm too old for this kind of thing," and he kind of refuses to go along until the president is killed, and then he realizes he's got to do something. Eleanor is outraged and demands that he, take revenge. Revenge is not really his way, but he's going to try and stop him anyway. So they go on this quest with an elf called Weehawk, who again is played by Richard Romanus, and they set off. Avatar converts this evil robot Necron 99 and reprograms him and names him Peace, and makes him cooperate with them. But he still has a connection to both Black Wolf and the projector somehow, so he can lead them to them. They go through a couple, various misadventures. I'm not going to, explain the whole movie to you, but or really spoil it, albeit it's from 1977. But they go through various adventures and misadventures, and eventually they arrive at Black Wolf's castle, and Avatar confronts Black Wolf, and he says a couple of really funny things. One of them is when he said Black Wolf says in a very dictatorial, boisterous rhodomontade, I don't have to destroy you. You can join me. Surrender your kingdom. He claps and he says, "You always did need an audience, you sap." I thought that was great. And then in the ultimate, he's trying to figure out how to defeat him, and ultimate things he says, "I want to teach you something that a trick that Ma showed me when you weren't around. But before I do, I got one more thing to say." He says, "I'm glad you changed your last name, you son of a bitch." And he pulls a Luger out of his sleeve and shoots him to death, which I think it's kind of ironic considering Black Wolf's supposed to not like technology and only use magic. But that was the only way to defeat Black Wolf. And then the castle collapses because his magic is gone. The projector explodes, and now his troops flee because they no longer have their direction. And the elves and the fairies and the trolls win, and life goes back to quote pretty much normal. Weehawk is now going to go back to Montagar, and he's going to be the king, and Avatar and Eleanor are going to go found their own new kingdom. And he says, "Come on, let's make it." And she says, "Oh, Avatar, you're getting older and much bolder." He says, "Oh, come on, I just meant let's make it out of here." She says, "Oh, sure you did." That's kind of the end of the movie, and they play a song over the end. They never say who sang the song, which I find kind of interesting. But it may have been, again, the girl who played Eleanor, Jessie Wells. I'm not sure. Very good movie. The animation is terrific. And as I said, unlike... I did like Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, but one thing that didn't work in that movie was the rotoscoping was done too much. And because he did like the Nazgul in rotoscope, the flat characters looked flatter against the rotoscoped characters. And that kind of ruined certain scenes in the movie for me. I think he did a very good job adapting it. He did some odd things, like he changed Saruman's name to Ahriman, and I don't understand that at all. I think he was trying to avoid confusion with Sauron, though I don't think the names sound that similar. The story, though, is pretty much straightforward, but I'm not talking about that movie anyway. I'm talking about Wizards, which is really great, and I highly recommend it. It's very funny, very silly. Like I said, I didn't tell you everything. One of the great in-jokes is Weehawk falls down the side of a cliff into a hole, and as a magic spell that Avatar says is Morrow, Crinkle, Frazetta, and of course those are all names of great animators. Jeff Morrow, Rob Crinkle, and Frank Frazetta. And then the monster that he faces is the id monster from Forbidden Planet, and it even makes the same sound as the id monster, which I thought was great. I told you about the character Larry, who's Master loves Larry, Master feeds Larry. he survives in the end too, which I think is interesting. Really good. I highly recommend it, and one of the better of the post-apocalyptic movies.